Hello, and welcome to the shiur number six in the series on kosher healing. Tonight or today, I would like to address the last item on handout number 16, and then also begin addressing some of the questions, the many questions that came in, and answer them and show how the principles that we've developed over the course of the shiurim will respond to most of these questions that have come in. Um, Once again, I say thank you to the technical support for helping produce these shiur. Yoga is the last item on handout number 16. Yoga is a great case study to be able to apply all these principles that we've been discussing until now. Let's begin with talking about some kosher things, and then we'll see what happened with yoga. Okay. If someone does exercise on a regular basis, will that be helpful to his health? Well, yes, there are medical studies that have been done to show that regular exercise helps with heart condition, it helps with controlling cancer, it helps with many ailments. And it's proven. There have been scientific studies. Does meditation help? Yes, it does. Does mindfulness help? What is mindfulness? Mindfulness means that a person pays attention to the thought processes that go through his head without actually reacting to them, which means observing my emotions without letting my emotions take control of my actions. Usually they're tied together. My emotions and I react. Well, mindfulness teaches us how we can observe our emotions as if being detached or distant from them, and not that the emotion immediately, like a knee-jerk reaction, caused me to act. And then, can I consciously calm myself down by breathing? Yes. Breathing rhythmically, breathing in a more, inhale less, exhale more. These techniques are scientifically proven that they can help the physiology, that means the physical well-being of a human being. There's a caveat with that proof, right? The caveat is that all this has only been proven since the 1980s and forward. Okay, until then, till the 1980s, till the beginning of the 1980s, these items, exercise, meditation, mindfulness, breathing, these are all things that Western medicine had not entertained. They didn't bring it into the equation of how one can maintain good health or heal. So therefore, it was unknown in Western medicine. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt was having high blood pressure in 1946, and it finally caused a stroke and it killed him, the doctors were registering that the high blood pressure was happening, but medicine didn't say what you should do with it. Well, we know today if someone has elevated blood pressure, we try to get it down. That means if you have medications, but if not medications, there are activities one can do to lower their blood pressure. But the doctors just stood by and just registered that his had high blood pressure, but they didn't do anything because they didn't know. They didn't have the studies because it was 1946, and those studies would see not till 1980s. So they didn't have it. These physical things, all right, these physical these physical activities, exercise, meditation, mindfulness, breathing, all of these things were exploited, however, in Eastern medicine, very much so. But in the Eastern medicine model, it's tied to their idolatry. So when they do their exercises, they want to do their exercises and match into their energy, the chi, right? That's why it's called, there's an exercise, two of them, that has a name in it. There's Qi Gong and Tai Chi, or the reverse, Tai Chi and Qi Gong. Each one is a little different focus. They're exercises, and in their original state, they were completely involved with the idolatry. The purpose of their exercises was to match the flowing and rhythm of the energy that flows through the universe, as they believe, as we've discussed before. So one could not get involved in a Tai Chi or Qi Gong or that type of thing because it's idolatrous. Okay, now, What about meditation? Well, today we know meditation can help the brain slow down, and it's a stress reducer. This was done, we call the relaxation response. It was developed by a physician in Boston, Massachusetts, part of Harvard, UMass, Mass Hospital, Mass General, Herbert Benson, relaxation response. They did studies, and they showed that meditation or mindfulness can help reduce stress, and the stress is what causes all sorts of medical ailments, right? High blood pressure, we just spoke about, cardiac issues, cancer, stress is and stress is causative to the onset of cancer. All right? Now, once again, these are medical procedures, these are physiological exercises that once upon a time were unknown in the West because they weren't developed, but the East had done it to be able to promote their idolatrous concepts. Yoga is the same thing. Yoga was developed, the postures, the mindset, the sitting and being just meditating and trying with the mantra and just empty the mind, the concept of just emptying the mind, blending into nothingness. Okay. Those are hallmarks of the idolatrous perspective of the chi, prana, the Vedus of the Hindus, this being empty, because as I explained earlier, their concept of the God is the vast universal consciousness, that everything else is just a part of them, a part of this Godhead, and we are to blending in with them, what they call nirvana, that's what's called, but blending in with it, I mean, ceasing to exist, no self, no ego, just I'm a nothingness. To them, that's the highest form of service of their God. That's an idolatrous concept. It's avodah zarah, as we spoke last time, because their God is a gashmi, is a physical aspect, which is hagshama, that's avodah zarah, it's idolatry. And attempting to serve it in that way is also idolatrous. Okay, so now that's what yoga is about. The original yoga is about exercises, postures, bowing, the whole thing, negation of self, right? Emptying the mind, meditating just with nothing, just sitting back and doing nothing, just meditating, mindless, remove the thoughts, just empty the mind from everything. Those are all idolatrous concepts. And that's what yoga is about. That's what the yoga in its origin is about. Now, so what's with yoga? Okay, so yoga now goes like this. It's interesting. There are three, which is I'm speaking about the United States. We'll see here that's very different, the United States and the rest of the world, as far as I know. Could be that the rest of the world, in the meantime, there are advances. I don't know. But let's start. Yoga in its origin and its original state is treif. It's not kosher. It is as if, right, just came out of India. It's idolatrous because they do not have the means of which they present the exercises is about blending with the meridians, with the chakras, the energy, yin and yang, which is used. Those are the two gods, the two main godheads of the vast universal energy is yin and yang, male and female. These are idolatrous concepts. I explore all of this in my sefer. I think it's in the end of chapter 21 or 22, 21, where I talk about yin and yang there and explain where it comes from and how it appears in Tanakh, the avodah zarahs, yin and yang, and therefore any mention of that brought into the yoga exercises makes it asur. That's the original. In the 1960s, I'll talk about the United States first, and then we'll talk about the rest of the world. In the United States, in the 1960s, was the first time that yoga and Eastern culture and idolatry and all that other things were brought in. It was a counterculture revolution, as it's called. People, college students, professors, others were not happy with the status quo of the American culture, and it was a counterculture revolution. It was a way of the younger generation or the outcasts, the ones who were not part of the main culture stream, wanted to assert themselves, and therefore they brought all this Eastern stuff in, and yoga came. But it was brought in lock, stock, and barrel, and in those days, the yoga was asur. It was totally prohibited. In those days also, there was something called transcendental meditation. and there were yogis, and there was cults and all sorts of other things going on. This was all part of it. It was all an attempt to bring Eastern idolatry, Eastern culture to the West, to the United States. That type of yoga is treif, as we just mentioned. Okay. In the 1970s, 1980s, was a second yoga boom. But that yoga was different. There was a cardiologist, his name was Dean Ornish. Dean Ornish did a bunch of, he was a cardiologist, and he was looking to see if there's something besides medication that can help his cardiology patients, people with heart conditions, high blood pressure, other heart disease. Is there something that can be done to help them other than medication? And he trained and understood, began focusing on the meditative practices of the East. And he actually went ahead and did studies, double-blind, controlled studies. Now, were these sponsored by the FDA? No, because the FDA is interested in medicine. They don't talk about exercise. That's not what the FDA does. Federal Drug Administration is about drugs, medicines. So it was independent. Ornish, he was in San Francisco. It was the University of California, San Francisco. Before that, he had been in Texas. And he conducted these studies. And he had double-blind, randomized studies to show, and it proved, and the literature says that his thesis initially, I have it here, right? The thesis was, it seemed physiologically implausible, right? In other words, it didn't make sense. The person already has coronary heart disease, right? He has disease in his arteries. That exercise not just stop the advance of the disease, but reverse it, change it around. So, you're crazy. How can that happen? He proved it. Evidence. He proved it. That exercises can change, right? The narrowing of the arteries, okay? It can change all sorts of things. And actually, it's now been proven that these, what they call holistic lifestyle changes, which means proper nutrition, exercise, meditation, stress management, all of these things can actually change what the genes of the cells give off as orders to the body. Gene expression of things that attack cancer, to prevent against cancer, is helped by holistic life changes. That means healthy eating, nutrition, exercise, meditation, all of those things change what the genes do. Whereas there are genes that promote cancer development. So the same three things, the meditation, the exercise, the good nutrition, will shut those genes down. So then we don't have the genes telling of those cancers keep growing. And at the same time, it puts the genes online, right, that say, well, produce more, right, antibodies to destroy cancer cells. This was a landmark discovery, but it's scientific. It was medically proved, and not just by Ornish, but others as well. They proved it, right? Scientific evidence. There were double-blind, randomized studies that proved that exercise, meditation, and then the doctors in Harvard, Herbert Benson, a whole bunch of others there, Joan Borysenko, Richard Davidson, these are big names in the field. They proved, okay, the relaxation response, right? That if you relax, it also helps. This is medically proven. Now, Ornish, because of his findings, this Dean Ornish, in 1980s, he developed a yoga, and he promoted it to help his patients that was absent, that removed all of the idolatrous appurtenances from these exercises. What he ended up leaving was kosher. He got rid of it. He isolated the kosher element of what works from the non-kosher overlays. Now, he was doing it just in order to present it to the general public in the United States of America that are secular. They're not interested in the Eastern philosophies and Eastern cultures. And it works. So now he began in 1980s and 1990s. He actually he was the personal doctor for President Bill Clinton in the 90s, became the health advisor, and that's when it really achieved lots of prominence. It even went public. The White House actually officially approved yoga. Well, which type of yoga? Okay, so that's what the halacha is bismanas today in the United States. Okay? If you look at the Mayo Clinic's website, the Mayo Clinic will tell you yoga depends, before you proceed with yoga, what are your desires, goals, needs, and then see the instructor, is this instructor going to give you what you desire? Exactly. Because there are two types of yoga in the United States. There's a yoga in the United States which hails from the countercultural revolution of the 1960s. Instructors still using the Eastern methodologies, the Eastern appurtenances, the overlays, the sutras and the mantras that are idolatrous, or they'll do it with the Buddha in the studio that has the Buddha, or they'll have the gongs, or they'll have the other things that are used in the idolatrous practices. For a frum Jew, that's usher, because you can't. That's the Darkei Amori piece. In other words, you're mixing together, right, the techniques that do work with non-kosher ingredients. It makes, as we spoke 2 times ago or last time about the chocolate chip cookie with the fat, chazer fat. If you have pig fat in it, it's trait, can't eat it. But if you take a shortening, in other words, it's delicious. Same thing here. Yoga that has no mention whatsoever, completely removed all the appurtenances of the idolaters, is kosher. It's a secular, physical, physiological, scientifically proven, evidence-based. These are things that will help with medical conditions, cancer, high blood pressure, other things as well, coronary disease. All of these things can be helped by a holistic, what they call a healthy lifestyle, or utilizing the relaxation response, or it doesn't have to be one or the other, both together. These work, but it has to be done with all of the not kosher appurtenances removed. I said the United States. Today in the United States, you can still get it. But you have to be careful and watchful, which means people ask for a yoga instructor to come, and then they tell them this is an Orthodox Jewish event and we want to have a little yoga exercise. And they say yes, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden they come, and there's one person, correspondent, said that after all was said and done, she was at I can't find it right now, but she wrote over here that she was at an event, and they assured her, and then she comes in, and right away the instructor was reading from the sutras. The sutras is the Bible of the Hindus. So someone has to be knowledgeable of what to watch out for to make sure that it's removed. Okay, what's wrong? The question came up. What's wrong with doing in a studio where there's an image of a Buddha there? That's the problem. There should be no images in the room. There should be no symbols. It has to be just a secular, physical exercise. Meditation, exercises, mantras, neutral mantra, something that, or kosher, but not anything to do with that religion. Now, Dr. Dean Ornish, with the help of President Bill Clinton and the White House, okay, so they succeeded in isolating the idolatry and removing it from a practice which promotes good health. What about the rest of the world? So I had correspondence with someone in England, and the Rav there was aghast. How could Rabbi Kaganoff say that there's such a thing as kosher yoga? Well, I investigated. You're right. I didn't know it's today because this correspondence goes back to a dozen years. It's 12, 13 years ago that I had this card. But he said, everything's treif of yoga. The mindset that they're looking for. Yeah, you're right. If the mindset that they're looking for is just to empty your mind, that's not kosher. If the purpose of the yoga, though, is to calm stress management, to calm my mind down, that is kosher, right? And it's not that my goal in life is to just be in a meditative state. No, the Torah is about doing mitzvahs and connecting with Hashem, which requires activity, not just sit back and a zombie. No, that's not what we're looking for. But if it's for temporary use to control stress, and we know how 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 harmful stress can be for the physical body, for physical welfare and mental welfare. So as a stress management tool, by all means, that we can use. So now, what about every other place in the world? I don't know what's in the UK right now. I mean, at this 12 years ago, there was no such thing as kosher yoga in the UK. When people call and ask about yoga, so I always first ascertain, where do you live? If they're in the United States, so I tell them, well, you can get kosher yoga, but you got to make sure that it has everything else stripped away from it. There's nothing there. No energy, no chakras, no meridians, no yin yang, no statues, postures. What are they using? All that. So you have to know what you're looking for, and then yes, there can be. It's a secular course. Then its exercise is very advantageous for good health. On the other hand, someone calls you from another country. I say, listen, I don't know if you have the advantage of what occurred in the United States. You really need to do your investigation, because if there is no kosher purveyor of yoga, then it's not kosher, right? And one has to be careful. Just because a frum person is teaching the yoga, are they knowledgeable of what this is what this course of shiurim is about, right? People are knowledgeable of what the Eastern religions teach and hold, and therefore we take things and we confuse them. I must admit that when I first was corresponding with this Rav in the UK, so in my innocence, I thought that when they say giving over their ego or being at one with God, I assumed that meant that's what we call the midas habitocho, right? That I fully trusting in Hashem. And he explained to me, no, that's not what they mean. And then afterwards, subsequently, I researched it. It's true. They do not mean this. They use words that we in our Western culture take, or even Torah culture, take certain words they use and then right away assume that they mean the same concepts as we do. They don't. They mean their idolatrous concepts of we use the word hisbatlos. We don't mean hisbatlos that we become negated to God. That's not what God wants. God created us as an independent being. Hisbatlos, when we say we negate our will. Yeah, batil ritzon, the Mishnah says, negate your will. Because I have my will, I want done. But Hashem says, no, don't do it that way, do it a different way. So I negate my will, but not my being. I am a person. God created me. As long as I'm here, He wants me here. And He wants me as a differentiated entity than He. I'm not to become part of Him. I'm supposed to be me, just like you are supposed to be you. And Hashem will bestow good on us if we put aside our will, our willfulness, my way, and follow Hashem's way, which is what the mitzvah is. Okay? So one has to be careful then in the rest of the world about yoga, what exactly is being taught. And in the United States, also one has to be careful, but at least one knows that it's accessible. I don't know anywhere else in the world if yoga could be kosher. I don't know. I haven't done a study from all over the countries, all over the world, but one has to be on the lookout. Okay, this was yoga. And that's a good case study, which is why I spent a little time on that. And now let's go on to the next thing here. Okay, someone asked me a question, what we should do of medicines and supplements. Actually, the better question is this. They're called off-label use. Now, what is off-label use? And I'll give you two examples here. Off-label use means like this. Let's say, I'll use this example. It's no longer prevalent, but still somewhat. There was a very popular drug for a very long time called Benadryl. It's been replaced now by others which are more potent, more effective. Benadryl is an antihistamine. Benadryl basically suppresses the immune system of the body. It was used for colds and allergies and what's called allergic reactions on the skin, either topical or oral. It's Benadryl. Now, that's what it was used for. Now, Benadryl happened to have a very strong side effect. It made a person drowsy. So on the label of all Benadryl, now Benadryl has been phased out basically because they developed other anti-allergy medications, Claritin, other cold remedies that don't have this undesirable side effect of the drowsiness. Because Benadryl, it would say that if you're taking Benadryl because you have a cold or you have allergies, then you should be careful driving a car or operating heavy machinery, right? And it'll say on the label, you may feel drowsy as a result. This is a known side effect. Okay, so now, what was its purpose? It went through phase 3 studies for use as an allergy, a cold remedy, allergy, skin rash, those type of things. Okay, now, could someone now take that and use it as a sleep medication, right? It makes me drowsy, so why not take it before I go to sleep and have it? It's a sleeping pill. Actually, they decided at one point that the industry, they took Benadryl, gave it a different name, all right? And then they called it, and they said this is to help induce sleep. And then the warning on the package says like this: it may induce dry throat, itchy skin. That's exactly what they used for the cold remedy, but now it's the undesirable because they want to use it now for the sleeping medication. So this becomes the watchful message. Be careful, it may also cause this. Now, let's say before they actually marketed it as a sleeping pill, someone noticed that side effect, wants to use it that way. That would be okay because it's a proven effect. Halakhically, it's known. Cause effect, indisputable. You take Benadryl, you get drowsy. Well, if I know that, okay, they want me to use it as a cold remedy, but if I decide I want it as a sleeping pill, that's not Daki Amori. It's a scientific fact. That's cause, its effect. Perfectly legitimate. Okay, and as a matter of fact, they eventually marketed it as such. Okay, now someone who knows that it'll also cause me a dry throat, I'm going to use it when I have a cold, they can do that too, because again, it's the same drug which has two effects, and they want to use it for one and not use it for the other. But it is factual that it causes this result. That's true. Okay. Now, how about something different? What if there's a drug marketed for a certain medical condition? Then I say, you know what? It worked there. Let me try it on something else completely different. Oh, no, because there I don't see an indisputable cause and effect. It's not undergone a phase 1, 2, 3 trial. I'm taking a leap of faith. It's a supposition. I'm making a conjecture. Who says that it really works, right? So, therefore, I'm not Daki Amori, the midst of the rules of Daki Amori tell me I can't do things that are just a wild guess. It's got to have some seichel to it. Now, an example of that is one of the questions that came in, and that is concerning, let me find it here. Oh, there's something called ganglion block. Ganglion block is there's a group of nerves in the neck, a ganglion. It's a crossover. A lot of nerves come together. And dentists in the dentist's office have used it for ages. They've used it when a person has to undergo root canal surgery. It's not, okay, it's in the dentist's office, so dental surgery. But root canal can be very painful, right? So what they do is they can use, and some people are very sensitive, they use a ganglion block. They take anesthesia, medication, which dulls the nerves in the ganglion block, which then controls all the nerve endings in the jaws, and the dentist can do the root canal, and the patient's not going to feel the pain. That's stellar ganglion block. That's what it's called. More recently, there's been this conjecture, there have been educated guesses, hunches that, you know what? People who suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is has serious debilitating effects, if we give them anesthesia in the ganglion block, it'll help. That's the theory. It should help with their controlling their symptoms, their disabilities, their debilities, not just their debilities, and to be able to function more without the psychological pain, without their symptomatic pain. It should work. So the question was, can you use ganglion block to treat PTSD? So I'm not familiar in any other country, and if there's other countries where it actually has undergone all the equivalent of phase 3 trials, I would like to know about that. Because to my knowledge, there isn't. Because right now in the United States, the Veterans Administration, because PTSD is a big issue by combat veterans, veterans who've gone through combat can suffer from PTSD, which can actually be very debilitating, can cause them to be non-functional. The Veterans Administration has now financed undergoing trials to see if ganglion block, stellar ganglion block, actually will help PTSD. Yes, there's a doctor out in Chicago, I think, or somewhere in the Midwest, who promotes use of ganglion block for PTSD. But it's one doctor who's making lots of money on it, and the studies are only his own studies. He hasn't released the data, and once again, they're not double-blind controlled studies, and there's no evidence yet. The VA right now is in a combination of phase 1, phase 2 trials. They were recruiting. They're no longer recruiting. You go on their website. It'll show you there. The studies are undergoing right now. Does ganglion block actually help short-term, long-term for PTSD control? But at this point, there's no conclusions. It's not undergone. It's not come through phase 3. It's only phase 1, phase 2. And we've already discussed that. Halacha says that that in order to use a medicine or a procedure, it has to have undergone at least a phase 3 trial. Otherwise, it's Darkei Amori. We don't know that. We have a theory, but we don't have a definite cause and effect. We don't know that. We don't have any reasonable, there's no proof. Keep it simple. There's no proof yet. It's a theory. Well, we can't just operate on a theory unless it has indisputable cause and effect, or at least a phase 3 trial, which is a more relaxed parameter which we use for medical treatments and medicine. Okay, so that's 2 examples to respond to the question about off-label use. In other words, the ganglion block to be used in a dentist office, right? Everybody knows that. It's been proven, right, over and over again. Yeah, the ganglion block deadens that group of nerves in the neck, and therefore you can operate in the jaw and do very difficult root canal work, and the patient doesn't feel it. And it's not general anesthesia, it's the ganglion block, and therefore the patient can fully awake and alert, just doesn't feel it until it wears off. Okay, those are 2 examples of off-label use. One that's certainly okay, the Benadryl, even though Benadryl is not popularly available anymore too much. Perhaps you can still get over the counter, but again, it has 2 proven effects. You can use it for either. And then the ganglion block, which is proven in one case, but not proven in another, and then you would not be able to use it for the unproven. Okay, now let's deal with a couple of more questions here. Okay. Yeah, we still have some time. Okay. Question came in from someone in Eretz Yisrael. I have diabetes, and I'm employing numerous kinds of medical and lifestyle interventions. Yes, good, because lifestyle interventions will make a change, right? Diabetes is affected by diet, exercise, right? For sure, absolutely. I'm a candidate. I have control. I've been pre-diabetes for 20-something years based on exercise and diet, right? My doctor told me, try it. If it works, it works, which is basically what I've been doing for the last 24 years, right? And I still remain the same pre-diabetes. Okay, that's great. Now comes the question. I recently read that drinking a tea of steeped cloves help. Now, is this Darkei Amori or what? Well, so I responded. I said, well, you heard, right? She read, drinking a tea of steeped cloves helps. Well, the first thing is, what's the thesis behind it? What's the svara? What is steeped cloves? Take cloves and you steep them in hot water. How is this supposed to work? Okay? What's the theory behind it? Is there a theory or just hearsay? For sure, then it's Darkei Amori. If there's a theory, well, has there been any testing of it? We're talking about diabetes, which is a medical condition. Does this have a track record? Is there phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? Is there a trial on it? Okay. And the answer is, well, she responded, no. At least if someone else has information about how steeped cloves, steeped cloves helps. So she asked, what about other alternative mixes that many people have found help with lowering blood sugar? Once again, the psychosomatic suggestion, the human body is able, right, upon suggesting to itself, improve medical conditions. That we know, all right? So now, what is at work over here if they use something else that has an unproven track record? Am I motivating the placebo effect? Am I activating? Am I activating the placebo effect? Or am I activating the positive encouragement effect, which I discussed in my Sefer in chapter 28 and chapter 3? Perhaps, but then call a spade a spade. It's about that I'm encouraged. Like if I feel depressed, I feel down, and I take a cup of hot cocoa and I drink it and it soothes me. Yeah, because it tastes good and I like the sugar and the milk and all, and it soothes me. So the soothing is what's happening. So I'm using the cocoa. It's not the cocoa that's healing me. It's the cocoa that's soothing me. And once I'm soothed, I feel better in general. We have to call a spade, which as we described when we spoke about Darkei Amori earlier in the series. Okay, number 3, she asked another question here. She discovered in the last 2 weeks she has a toenail fungus. She prefers, of course, people prefer the natural ways to take care, if it's allowed and possible. Can I try applications that are purported, in quotation, to work? No, same thing. If they're purported to work, what is the reason? What's the svara? What's the explanation? How does it work? You have a fungus, right? A fungus is a living creature, living entity that has made its home in my toenails. Now, how is this going to be an antibiotic? How is it going to kill this fungus? How is it going to control the fungus? What exactly is this purported? What does it do? And does it make any sense? Does it follow any medical scientific, or is it just a crazy theory that's being brought up? Because I'll give you an example of a crazy theory. Okay? A Talmud of mine had cancer, Nebuch. All right? And there's a person was convincing him, you need antibiotics. Why antibiotics? Well, you see, cancers are white, and an infection is white. So just like an infection is the pus is white, and antibiotics gets rid of the infection, the pus. So antibiotics will work on the cancer because it's white. Anyone who hears that, who has any seichel, realizes that's just so stupid. There's no sense to that at all. Because this is white, that's why a cancer are cells that are growing and have a white color. It's not pus. If you know anything about it, pus is the dead cells caused by the white blood. It's the leukocytes, the white blood cells that have died in battle with the microbes and killed. What does that do? One has nothing to do with the other. So what type of thought process is going into this? It doesn't make any sense. But people get fooled with people who don't know medical science. Just will fall for it. Will be convinced, and then all of a sudden they're busy pestering. I want antibiotics. Why do you want antibiotics? It's not going to do anything with the cancer. All you're going to do is undermine your immune system by the antibiotics. What are you doing? Okay, so this is the same thing over here. Purported to work. So people say it works, but it could be old wives' tales. Who says it has any validity whatsoever? Okay, now, next. Okay, this one, I do believe this may be the last one we deal with today. We'll see. Okay. Is muscle testing an issue of Darkei Hamori / Avodah Zarah? Muscle testing. Okay, so now the questioner was asking, okay, let's go slowly. It's very popular by energy healers, alternative healers, that they use muscle testing. What's muscle testing? Is they take either sometimes foodstuffs over parts of the body, and they test the muscle to see how it reacts. Or they'll inquire of a person, what's wrong with him, and then feel muscles, right? Kinesiology is built on this type of stuff, right? So that's the question. Is that permitted or not? Okay, now, no, this is exactly similar to what I spoke about before, using something that has a proven track record in one area and then taking it to a different area and saying it's going to work there as well, right? Similar to the ganglion block thing. Okay, here, I'll explain. If a physical therapist, right, physical therapist means a person breaks a bone, injures a joint, right, is laid up in bed for a long time due to illness. Afterwards, the muscles, if you don't use muscles and the bone, the skeletal-muscular system, that means the bone muscle system that gets us to move around. I'm moving my hands here, right? Those are muscles and joints, bones moving. Now, I use them, but let's say I wouldn't use them, then I become like a couch potato. Then the muscles lose their tone, called atrophy. Muscles stop, and the muscles stop. You don't use them, the famous adage, use them or lose them. You don't use it, then you lose they atrophy, which is a problem with older people, is that they become more sedentary. They don't want moving around, and then that's exactly the problem, right? I recently was introduced to a young, spry Talmud Chacham who was more than 90 years old, and you couldn't believe it. Well, I was told the secret. He's on his treadmill every day, 45 minutes. The neighbor's here when he's on the treadmill. He has his treadmill set up with a stender, so he's learning, but he's on the treadmill. He's moving, okay? Using the muscles means that's you want a schooler for longevity? Use your muscles. The muscles will last longer because they're being used. Now, person goes through an injury. He's laid up in bed, sickness, or an injury. Stops using it naturally. It's in the cast. He breaks a leg, breaks an arm. It's in the cast. Right? Or he has a serious illness. He's laid up in bed so he has to use his muscles. So now comes the question, okay, so can he wants to get back to activity, life's activity. So they call in a physical therapist. A physical therapist is someone who spent a lot of time studying, right, the various different muscle parts of the different muscles of the body and how they interact with the bones, how they interact with each other. And they have extremely well trained as to how do you enhance them? Some have personal trainers who help them all the time. Others, you go when you have an injury, you go to a physical therapy. The first thing a physical therapist is going to, after reading the doctor's report that the doctor says it's safe to work with the patient and an understanding of what the injury was, the next thing that next on the agenda will be is that they're going to do muscle testing. Well, that's what they want to know, what's wrong with the muscle. And they first say, pain management. Are you in pain moving the muscle? So then the first thing is they have to reduce the pain, swelling that may cause the pain. So first is pain. Second is range of motion. That means muscles have a certain range of motion, right? These muscles, the biceps, triceps, extend all the way this way and all the way this way. Now, what if because of an injury I can only move my arm till there, right? Because the muscle is too tight. Well, so that's my range of motion. The range of motion should be this. And then they'll test. Well, the muscle testing, if my range of motion can't go any further, okay, that means the muscle has now been atrophied, that it won't allow further motion. So first, pain reduction. Second of all, range of motion. Then turn strengthening. Because even if I do have this range of motion, right, I may not be strong enough to do daily activities. I can't take something down off a shelf. It's strong enough. So that's called strengthening. So those are the three parts of physical therapy, right? Pain reduction, range of motion, strengthening. But how do they know what the baseline is? Where do you start from? Well, they have to test the muscle. That's what they're coming to treat. Muscle testing. So if you're going to do muscle testing in the context of physical therapy, that's great. That's what you should be doing. If a physical therapist will not be doing muscle testing, whether it be leg, be arms, body muscle, whatever it is, back. If they're not doing muscle testing, then they're not competent, because that's what you got to do to figure out what's the challenge here. What's the goal? This is what's wrong. This is the pain. This is the range of motion or lack of range of motion. This is how weak it is. And then we have to strengthen it. We have to correct that. So in that context, muscle testing is great. It's perfectly legitimate. And it's kosher. It's not dark anymore. It's minhag shalom. Now, what in the world does muscle testing my arm have to do if my body has an allergy to wheat or milk? Very little, if anything at all. And certainly, medical science, there have been no testing of indisputable cause and effect. So now, if one will use muscle testing to be able to derive what ailments a person has, or what psycho-emotional issues, what type of emotional trauma they went through in the past, then that's using muscle testing, which is meant for a physical ailment about the physical musculoskeletal part of the body, to something completely different. So it's off-label, as we would call it. It's using it for something that it wasn't designed, or not just designed. We don't know if it works. Now, you'll say that they get good results. Okay, so I discussed this in chapter 17 and 18 more, chapter 18 of my book. It's very similar to dowsing. All right, what's dowsing? All right, dowsing, actually, I show in those two chapters, 17 and 18, that there are two types of dowsing, right? One type of dowsing, I recommend in my sefer that they should stop calling it by that name, because that dowsing is kosher. There's another type of dowsing, which is treif. It's not kosher. Okay, now, what are the two? So the word dowsing is an overall term, okay? One subdivision, which is the kosher, is called penduluming. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one is called divining rods, which is a completely different phenomenon, and it's awesome. It's awesome. Now, what are the two? Now, let's talk about penduluming. Penduluming has been proven psychologically that it works. What's penduluming? Okay, so this is called dowsing in the world, even though I recommend that they stop using it, because this dowsing gets confused. And in the sefer, my sefer, chapter 18, I show there are rabbonim who actually, because they know that penduluming works, they've extended it that divining rods work, and that's a leap of faith, and one has nothing to do with the other. It's a very big confusion. Penduluming. Psychologists have known penduluming for 40 years or longer that it works. What's penduluming? Penduluming is like this. You take a string, you put your arm, you support your hand, elbow on the table, you have your hand like this, you have a string comes down, and there's a weight at the end of the string. It could be a simple thing. You take a washer or a nut and bolt, right? Something at the bottom here, just something, a little weight. And you hold your hand like this, very gently, okay? Now, and then you can ask questions of the person about things about his anatomy, about his physiology, about things that the subconscious mind knows. Because as we go through life, we don't think every moment about how fast our heart is beating or about our breathing rate. These are things that are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. It's automatic. Likewise, the body is constantly monitoring, right, regulating everything, the digestion, metabolism, all those things. Now, these are parts, the subconscious mind knows these things. The subconscious mind also knows, right, that if I eat a certain food, I'm going to have a negative reaction to it. Now, consciously, I may not be aware of it. Subconsciously, it knows. Now, if these are things that are within the subconscious and reasonable to assume, we can interrogate the brain, the subconscious, by use of a pendulum. How is that? Because we are great actors. Human beings are able to control how they project themselves outside. Now, someone says something or something happens, or in the presence of a person that caused me anguish, my body wants to react. Fight or flight or other reactivities. So we control it. But inside, the body does move. We just have to learn to be able to control it. Don't allow it to be seen. But an imperceptible motion there is. So it's called the ideomotor effect. That's what it's called scientifically. Now, the ideomotor effect is like this. So we ask the body, we ask the person a question. It's subconscious. We're asking the subconscious a question about the physical health, right? Something that the unconscious regulatory system or the unconscious, subconscious memory should know, still held there. Just the conscious has subdued it, has suppressed it, or the conscious will not allow it to say. And we hold to ask the question. So the subconscious will allow, the hand will move slightly. That's a fact. You can't see it though. But if you hang the pendulum to it, the pendulum then, this little motion here that's almost imperceptible when it gets down to here, causes it to swing. And we can train the part of the penduluming technique is that we make an agreement with the subconscious that one direction is yes, the other direction is no. This is scientific. This is the subconscious, and I talk about, now, can the subconscious tell us what's going to be in the future? No, because the subconscious is not privy to what's going to be in the future. So if to use this to be able to prognosticate, which means a fancy word, means to tell the future, first of all, a legitimate pendulum will not do it. Second of all, and they know it's false. And third of all, it's halachically wrong. It's also to do that. That's kisum, that's kosem or nichush. One of the los assays that's included in Darkei Amori. So you can't ask about the future. You can ask only things that are reasonable to assume that the subconscious memory has knowledge of it. And then what you're doing is the subconscious, which normally is suppressed by the conscious and not allowed to give full expression, right? So then the pendulum allows it to respond, and you can glean also for wonderful information about treatments of a person based on penduluming. It's a psychological phenomenon that has been proven. Chapter 18 of my Sefer, I cite there from one of the early works on self-hypnosis, and it describes exactly the process that I just did, and it's known throughout the world of psychology. This is a means that can be used. It's kosher. Those who want to be precise, they call it penduluming. They don't call it dowsing. And the reason is because traditionally dowsing means a completely different thing. Dowsing means it's called divining rods. I also have a whole appendix in my Sefer about divining rods. I reproduce the website from Wikipedia there. So people should know that divining rods is that people would take a stick, what's the name of them? Wishbone, it's called. A wishbone, it's a forked stick, right? It has two forks. Person holds the two ends here and the tip that's united down there. And he walks around the field looking for gold below the ground, water, other things. They're looking for energy fields, okay? That's Darkei Amori for sure. And it's been disproven by, not only, they tried in my Sefer I bring over there, chapter 18, the Department of Defense, the War Department, the Department of Defense wanted to be able to find after the war zone, so there are unexploded shells and other landmines that are still hidden during wartime. Now they want to clean them away, all right, to be able to, civilians can live there. Otherwise, a civilian walks along, touches an unexploded shell, and it blows up a mine. He steps on a mine, he kills him. The military called in the biggest experts, dowsers, divining rod people, to see if they could locate unexploded, fancy term, ordnance. It failed. No better than worse than chance. So it was proven that they doesn't do anything. It's a farce. It's a joke. How is it that sometimes people do discover? So Rambam already tells us it's a completely different phenomenon. Some people are born with an intuition right? That they have a sense that there's something here. There's a sense. Rambam says that's a type of a skill, a type of talent that invests. He writes it in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. He talks about it in the Los Hasays of Kosem and Nichush. How can these people foretell the truth? Because they intuit. They have certain intuitive feelings about what will happen. Are they prophets? Absolutely not. The Rambam says where it comes from, it's not prophecy, right? It's a natural talent. Would they develop it properly? Then perhaps they could have some sort of kosher application. It's a little bit more extended that women have a certain sense of intuition. Mothers have an intuition about what the child or what their partner. There's a sense of intuition called feminine intuition. That developed even more so. People have such a sense. It's a talent. It's a natural given capacity that some people have. Now, if a person's upfront about it, which is what we should be doing, so I have such an intuition. So that's being honest and straightforward. Okay, right? What should we do about it? Well, the Torah gives guidance. Nothing except that choshesh, maybe after a certain track record. So then it's like a simon, maybe, but nothing more than that. But once I go and I hide this natural phenomenon and I attribute it to a false cause, the divining rods, a pendulum, telling the truth, telling the future, those type of things now gets involved in the Los Hasays of Darkei HaMori. Okay, the Ram talks about it in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. He repeats again in Pirush HaMishnah, and in the Moreh Nevuchim, he explains it at great extent, of all places where he talks about Nevuah. The Ram talks about that these people, these soothsayers, they have what to say. They're not that we can rely on them, but it's not just a farce. It's not that they're faking. There is something of substance, but it's intuition, undeveloped intuition, and wrongly used intuition. But it's not, right? But once they start attributing it, it's the stick, or it's a pendulum, or it's a muscle testing. That's Darkei HaMori. It's not proven, right, that this taking a food and going across the body, perhaps the person is intuiting a certain tightness of the muscle that's similar to the penduluming, but then call it what it is. It's not that the muscle or I'm intuiting that this is an allergy you have. Otherwise, it's Darkei HaMori. It's also, you can't do it. It's Darkei HaMori. Okay. Now, so I believe, yes, it's only 2 minutes left. So once again, thank you all for listening. Next year, I think one more year probably, we'll be discussing next time some more for the questions, unless more questions come in, but more questions. And then also, there were a lot of questions about psychedelics, and I'll begin addressing those as well, hopefully with the next year. Okay, once again, thank you very much, and please feel free to send your questions in. If you have other questions, please feel free. kosherhealing at gmail.com, or my email address appears in both my svarim, so you can send it directly to me if you want as well. Okay, thank you very much, and good night.